It's Diwali week, and guess who's in town? It's the global chief of Uber. Remember, Uber on its own has been trying to reinvent shared mobility, a concept it introduced first on this planet, disrupting how most of us ride to work or to parties or just to meet our friends every day. The global chief is in India and has plans of disrupting shared mobility here. For the first time ever in Asia, Uber is planning to introduce features on its app that will talk about public transport. They're also talking about launching a new platform which could include buses. Why are you hearing it from me? The man on your screens at the moment, taking you through the details.
Uber bus service is a relatively new product that we launched about 18 months ago. It's in a number of markets. We originally launched it in Cairo, and now we're expanding it in a few other markets as well, in Mexico, in Kiev. And right now we're testing and learning to understand how the service works, to make sure that we're maximizing utilization of the bus, to think about what kind of fixed routes we have or dynamic routes, etc. As that product matures, it's absolutely a product that is specifically targeted to markets such as Delhi and other developing markets, to make sure that the Uber service isn't just available to the more wealthy, but is also available to everybody who lives in a city. And for us, bus is a very important factor in terms of making sure that Uber is affordable to everybody. In terms of the lockup period, I have to tell you, I'm actually looking forward to it passing through. A lot of people have talked about the lockup period. The definition of the value of the company for us is going to be long-term and how we build the company. The lockup period, the releases, it's only a step in that direction, and I think it'll come and go. 5 years from now, we're not going to be talking about, everyone's going to forget about the lockup period one way or the other. In terms of India, India is a fundamental part of Uber's growth going forward. It's a very important market for us. It's a top 10 market for us. We continue to lean in and invest in India. The profitability characteristics of our business here are improving. And what's really important in India for us is we think that it's a market that's a big market, but it's also a market that can be an innovation gateway for us into the rest of the developing world. If I look at Uber's growth over the next 10 years, its growth is going to be defined by markets like India, Africa, the Middle East, more so than the developed markets such as the US and Europe. What we see here in India is obviously scale. We see innovation in India. Our partnership here with Delhi Metro is an example of the Indian transportation industry being willing to take risks and to truly innovate. We have engineering centers right here in India. I'm actually going to them in the next couple of days in Bangalore and Hyderabad so that we can have local innovation here. And what we see in the Indian market is it's a very competitive market with a consumer that's quite demanding. They want great prices and they want great service as well. So to the extent that we can build services here in India, we think we can build in India and then export all around the world with local talent and with partnerships with public services as well that are more innovative than you see in many other countries. I think that one of the enemies of innovation is established protocols and established industries. I think that our new world is moving from a world where ownership was prized to a world of services. And the newer generation, the dream isn't to own a car. The dream is to have freedom, to essentially be able to have any kind of service on demand. And you heard Dr. Singh talk about how it is very, very inefficient to have a car parked at a station, for example, all day, drop it off, pick it up, etc. These are not ways in which you would design a system from the ground up. So in the developed world where there's very high car ownership, to some extent that car ownership is a trap. It's a trap that can sometimes prevent innovation because you've got essentially infrastructure that's designed for the last 10 years versus infrastructure that's designed for the next 10 to 20 years. The opportunity here in India is that India doesn't need to be trapped by these established norms. India can actually be the innovator at mass for the developing countries of the world and could be a trailblazer. And I think today will be looked back upon as a day when innovation accelerated here in India. India is core to Uber's strategy for the next 5, 10 years and beyond. India has a scale, and India also has the innovative talent here so that it's not a market that we kind of come into, but it's a market that we build from. And we're very confident as far as the trends in India that we see is some of our core products, such as our car products, are becoming much improved on a profitability scale, but we are going to continue to invest the profits from some of our more mature products into newer products such as auto, moto, transit as well. So we're very confident of India's not only profitability profile, but long-term growth profile as well. We're here to stay. We actually built a separate product team that is completely focused on safety features so that we don't have to essentially have safety compete for any other priorities for the company. It is a group of over 100 engineers, and we are incredibly excited to be a trailblazer here. We want to be the safest transportation platform on earth. That's the goal for Uber, and we can, with announcements like these, we can not only be the safest transportation platform on earth, but also the most available and affordable as well. As far as the innovation in India goes, what my expectation for India is that India is going to be a significant source for innovation, and innovation that is unique to developing markets going forward. One example of that is the Uber Lite app. The Uber Lite app is an Android-based app that Monica and his team have developed here in India. It's a team in India that developed this app, and essentially it's designed for low bandwidth and or phones that have less memory, less speed, etc. It's a special designed app that was built here. And Uber Lite was launched here in India and now has been expanded in many markets in the Middle East, Africa, etc. So we think that the kinds of products that inure themselves into either the hardware set, which is different in developing markets from, let's say, Western markets, products like moto and auto that are designed, again, to be more affordable. These are the kinds of products where we see India leading, and we think especially as it relates to volumes going forward. I think that where India can be an innovation hub is the products as it relates to mobility, platform mobility, more affordable mobility, electric and shared, that we can expand not only just here in India, but all over the world.
The Uber global chief is in India talking about being involved with public transportation for the first time in Asia from the Indian market. So even as Uber goes into the slow lane, we read about the job losses where the Indian market also suffered. Clearly, Uber now planning to disrupt mobility with public transport is attempting to do so in Asia with India. I'm going to be discussing the future of shared mobility, and I'm being joined by someone who understands this space very, very closely. It's the founder and CEO of Chalo, Mohit Dubey, who's joining us on Skype all the way from Jaipur. Mohit, good evening. Welcome to Startup Central. You understand shared mobility. This, I think, is your second startup, second venture, which is dealing in this entire space. You've had the company that began it all, Uber, the global chief in India. If I could first get your initial thoughts, is it possible for an aggregator or for a startup to be involved at all in aggregating public transport the way it is in India at the moment?
You know, India is far away from the place where you can just come and aggregate everything put together. If you think about it, we're still adding modes of transport. We're still adding, the last mile. We're still solving for e-rickshaws. We are adding more buses in the country. We are still adding modes of transport and modes of payment. So we are far off from Uber coming in and saying, I can just aggregate everything together and make it work from door to door, actually. So we are far off from there. But, it's very interesting to hear him say what he talked about, doing creating pickup points and drop points at metro stations, especially in Delhi. Very, very interesting because just think about it. Less than 3% people in this country got cars, and which is great, right? So Uber can come and improve that. But less than another 3% people can really afford a cab. So in overall, single digit percent people of population can really afford a cab or buy a car. And therefore, the answer to this country is not that you take people off metro and put them into another car. No, we can't really do that. And there's so many implications of that. When people travel in a car, the space they occupy, we put more cars on the road. It doesn't mean more people are also traveling. A car typically takes 50 square feet to 100 square feet of space per person, whereas a bus or a metro will take hardly 5 to 6 square feet for each person actually. Similarly, the pollution level on a car is 10 times more than a public transport. So India's answer to large population where 300 million Indians come out of the house and travel every day is a public transport. And one thing I want to really say here is that India do spend a lot more money on buses. Then they do 10 times more money on buses than they do on the Uber actually. And therefore, it's very, very important to solve the bus experience compared to anything else. And we got to make buses cleaner. We got to make them more reliable. We got to make them more friendly. We got to make them more accessible and predictable, etc. Improve that. So I don't think Uber starting up pickup points and drop points and connecting with the metro station is great for the metros. I think we need to fill more metros rather than taking people out of metros and putting them into Uber. It has to be vice versa, actually. We got to have more feeder buses for metro so that more people can access the public transport. And while it's great to hear that Uber has been doing bus services around the world,
Mohit, if that's all great to hear. It sounds very good to hear. And I take your point, but I want to stick with public transport. Do you see a scenario where we could have public buses in India being on apps like Uber or an Ola? Is it possible? I know you have a shuttle. You have someone like you who's also trying to be in the bus space, maybe not as an aggregator, but is it possible at all?
You know what? Number of money people spend on buses today in this country is 10 times they spend on the cabs. 10 times, $60 billion spent on buses compared to something like $9 or $10 billion on cabs. That's already large. But I think what is not going to happen very quickly is the aggregation. I put the public transport along with an Uber. That's not going to be great actually. The audience which is accessing an Uber is very, very different from the audience which is accessing a bus. The cost of traveling in a bus is 1.5 rupees per kilometer. The cost of traveling in a metro is 2 rupees per kilometer. I mean, think about the cost of traveling in an Uber. It's 20 rupees per kilometer. Even a moto or an auto is at more than 10 rupees per kilometer. So I think we're talking about two different audience. We're talking about two different cost of travel relatively, and therefore just to aggregate them is not the right answer.
So now, this is, like I said, your second venture, which has to do with shared mobility. Talk us through what you're doing at Chalo. What are you trying to achieve with your new venture, Chalo, which obviously has impressed a whole host of marquee investors that have pumped in 150 crore rupees?
So, Chalo is making bus travel simpler. And we do it by making sure that nobody has to wait at the bus stop. The first thing we do is to show your bus live on your mobile phone. Today, Chalo has deployed this live tracking on more than 10,000 buses across the country. And we go a step beyond that. Once you can see where your bus is and you don't have to wait at the bus stop any longer, we make sure that you can buy a bus ticket on your phone, or we can give you a travel card, like Chalo travel card, which you can use to buy a package for the whole month, buy a 1-day pack, 3-day pack, 7-day pack, etc. And then you can use it to travel seamlessly. You don't have to worry about the cash, you don't have to worry about dealing with the crew, etc. You can just travel seamlessly. So Chalo first makes the buses predictable to you, so you know what time the bus will exactly come to your bus stop, and then we make the ticketing simpler. And we go beyond that. Nobody ever invested in training the crew in this country for a safe driving, or to make them how to interact with the commuters. We go and train crew, we go and train drivers, and we make sure that buses are safe for kids, they're safe for women, they're safe for elderly people. This is what Chalo does.
That is, and how has it taken off? Tell us a bit about what you have been able to achieve so far.
So we help people find their bus on 20 cities in this country, around more than 10,000 buses, as I told you. We also run buses. When I say run buses, we go to the operator We take over the buses, do the ticketing, do the live tracking, train the crew in more than 10 cities in this country. And we would be actually helping something like 200 million tickets on a 200 million rides on a monthly basis.
I want to ask you a question, and pardon me for asking this. And to be fair, everyone who is involved in transport and mobility is asked this question. Remember that entire crime that also happened, that Uber rape that we all saw, the Uber driver rape. I'm also asking this as a lady. When I was in college, I hated going on buses because of safety and that bottom pinching and all of that. That is a reality. That is also India for you. So when you try and popularize public transport, and you try to popularize bus transport, which you're saying is still the most popular medium, do you tackle that at all? Is technology being used to tackle that aspect?
So we do it in two ways. One is, most of the buses are getting equipped with cameras, video cameras. So there's a live feed available of the camera, so you can really see the crew behavior. You can really see the public, and you can see it on an ongoing basis. And we also get the recording in some cases because the bus is not always connected. That's number one. Number two, the Chalo app also enables the safety. You can press a button and share your ride. Let people know where you are exactly, and it can also trigger an SOS if you need to help with that. The third is, as you said, today we do not take the buses, right? Most of us do not take the buses, but taking bus in this country is like a compulsion. It's like majburi. You take a bus only when you cannot take any other modes of transport. So we got to make that better. We got to make that better for 300 million Indians, because they're taking buses every day. And that's why I said that one of our goal is to make the bus experience superior. We want to make sure that crew understand this. We want to make sure that conductor knows how to really drive a safer experience for the traveler. So we do all that. That's a part of their training and a part of their orientation. And this has to be done. This has to be done at a community level. This has to be done with people willing to travel in buses, and then also the crew is trained and the operators are understood that this is how it should be. And interestingly, most of the buses, like 70% of the buses in this country, are run by private operators. They're not run by the government. In Jaipur, for example, there are 300 buses run by government, and there are 1,200 buses run by private operators. And so is Kochi, and so is Kolkata, and so on and so forth. And because they're private operators, which are really, really small, each operator own not more than 1 or 2 buses. They're not able to invest into technology.
If I could come in there, I know you're joining us.
Not able to invest in technology.
Mohit, you're joining us from the pink city of Jaipur, and that's why the numbers are so fresh for you. And the other city that you also mentioned, these are tourist hotspots. What if I'm in Gurgaon and want to go to Noida and don't want to get on a metro, which, is still not as well connected as it should be, and I want to ride on a bus? That option still does not exist. You can have all the cameras you want, but I'm also going to say this as a woman, and when it comes to safety, and I'm going to be crude. Agar kisi ko chhedna hai, wo chhed ke nikal jayenge. You can have all the cameras, that guy is gone, right? So my twofold question. One, what you're talking about is primarily for tourism, is not for everyday usage. And will a CCTV camera really make the bus safer, because the guy is going to have disembark and leave anyway?
Okay, so 2 points in your question, actually. Number one, we're talking about cities which are not tourists, for example. We're talking about Indore, Bhopal. We're talking about Jabalpur, Ujjain, Gwalior, Kolkata. All of these places, right? They're not primarily tourist cities. We're talking about a daily commute travel. We're talking about people who get up from their house and go to a school or a college or to the office, right? We're talking about all of those people, actually. So that's one. And the second is, what you said is right, actually. Those things do happen. But that's what we need to really solve for. And that is what Chalo is attempting to solve for. We have significantly improved ridership in a city like Bhopal by 30% over last year. So 30% more people take buses today than they used to take earlier. That basically means, people's faith in the buses is so much more now, because they can see where the bus is, because they can interact with a better quality crew. They can report if they have an incident on a Chalo app, and therefore it's just significantly better. And that's what we need to do in every city. Delhi is not where Chalo is today, and I hope we can do it one day. But Delhi got, say, around about 6,000 odd buses. But you're not able to take a bus in Delhi at times because you will not know where exactly the bus is. And that's the first thing I talked about, that for you to know on your phone where exactly the bus is, the predictability of the bus. Like you see an Uber coming to you on your phone, where exactly the Uber is, you can see a bus. In absence of these things, people do stay away from the buses.
So tell me something today, when I made sure that my producer also connected you in time, so you could firsthand hear what the global chief of Uber was saying in the presence of the DMRC chief, the Delhi Metro Rail chief, and he also talked about buses. So tell me something, founders like yourselves, when you hear that a global giant like Uber is also eyeing this space, what went through your mind? Is it like, great, the system will be more robust, or is it time to panic, saying that, hey, do I need to sell out, or how am I going to survive? Is there a disruption coming? Can you share that with us?
I think Uber has too many things on their plate to worry about. We understand mobility and buses so well in this country. I don't think I worry about when Uber says they want to run buses. Actually, buses are so much more complicated. They're so much more complicated than cabs and anything else, actually. And Chalo, over last 4 years, has invested significantly into technology, into operations, into getting it right. And I think we know in fact, so many markets that we try and do it, we would influence the largest mode of commute in that city so much more higher than anything else, be it autos, be it cabs, be it two-wheelers. We would be the significant mode of commute for the people in that city. So I didn't think I worry about overcoming it here, but I do believe that the way Uber is running is putting more people from uh, you know metro to the car is not the answer. Running buses is the answer to some extent by Uber, oh yes, but Uber in all these markets which he talked about, like Cairo, for example, and I've seen that they run the point-to-point bus services. What we need to solve for is the stage carriers. But bus which runs in the city, they stops at every few minutes, every 1 kilometer, and you're at a bus stop. Those are the buses which you need to solve for, and not to those corporate buses which goes from, for example, in Bombay, you run a bus from Vashi to BKC. That's only caters to a small part of the population. We need to solve it for the masses at large, and therefore the public transport like city buses.